Did you know that you've been lied to? But I know the truth, and I'm going to reveal it to you today. Let me start by saying that you've been lied to. Everyone you've listened to in the last 5 years has lied to you, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Now, think about that for a minute. Think about what I just said. And think about the things that you've heard other influencers or podcasters or anyone else in your life that has come along and said those very words to you. You've been lied to for the last 5 years, the last 10 years. All of what you've heard about is wrong. But I'm going to tell you the truth. No one likes to feel like they've been lied to or misled by the mainstream media or the people they enjoy listening to or their friends or their family. You only have to look at ratings for the mainstream media for the last several years and watch how those have dropped to know that people are starting to recognize that mainstream media is lying to us and has been lying to us, and they don't like it, and so they're turning them off. Mainstream media has lied to us through COVID, through the Hunter Biden laptop, telling us that Biden was cognizantly aware of his surroundings. They lie about politicians. They lie about the Epstein files. They lie about who's in the Epstein files and what they've done. They lie about everything. And then when they get caught, they do nothing. Because no one hears what's on page 2 or 5 or 10. They only see the headlines. They know that their audience is only listening to the headlines and then not seeing, hearing, reading the retractions that come later. In fact, it's gotten so bad that Tucker Carlson and others aren't even issuing retractions when they're wrong. They just are letting it go because no one's listening to that anyway. All they're hearing is the initial lie, the initial headline, the initial blown up information that is clickbait and getting them more money than they know what to do with. The lies that mainstream media have told to the public have opened up a unique psychological doorway in the public. None of us likes to be lied to. None of us wants to feel as if we've been misled. And none of us wants to think that we've been led by a nose ring down the garden path. And so when someone comes along and says to us, you know what, you've been lied to and everything you've heard is wrong, it opens up a psychological door that has allowed other people to continue to lie to you, just in a different way. I know I've mentioned Tucker's name a couple times today, but the thing that really stands out to me is one of his podcasts that he did recently was when he came out and he said, now no one is reporting or telling you this unreported fact, but I'm going to tell you. And that's that Qatar has arrested Mossad agents who were going to bomb their country. Now, within an hour, Qatar came out and said, no, that's not true. But Tucker never issued a retraction, never said that, oh, I'm sorry, I stepped out of line in that instance. And I'm not saying that he's the only one doing it. I'm just saying that's a recent example of what I'm talking about. There's another influencer, Candace Owens, who has been making slanderous lies against Turning Point and Charlie Kirk's legacy and his wife. And none of it with citations, none of it to show or to give you information or show you where she's gotten this information or to prove that the information is true. And now she's gathered this large number of people who believe that Turning Point is anti-Semitic and was because Charlie was, which he wasn't. They have a large number of people now who believe that Turning Point was responsible for Charlie's assassination and believe that it is his widow who was behind the whole thing. But she has never shown any or demonstrated any proof for anything of what she says. She pulls facts from the news or things that you've seen on video and then gives you her perspective or interpretation of what's happening. And any of us can do that. Some of the greatest con artists in the world understand that The best way to tell a great lie is for there to be a kernel of truth in it. And that kernel of truth is what you can see on video that's been shown on news reports. And then I'll give you my interpretation of what that means. My point in bringing all of this up is not to point a finger at any one person, but to say that we need to be cognizant of what we're listening to. We need to use critical thinking. We must ask, show me the proof. Show me where that is true. Show me how that happens. This allows us to confirm the information for ourselves. So when we are passing along that information to someone else, it is truth. And we can demonstrate where we've seen it or found it or read about it. So for instance, for years, for decades, there has been an anti-Semitic thread that has run through the Christian community. Now, I think you have to look at that and ask yourself, how are you a Christian who hates the Jews when Christ was a Jew? So now I'm going to hate the race from which Jesus came, and I'm going to continue to call myself a Christian, or one who follows, obeys, and is repentant to Christ. And the people who are saying that they hate the Jews, or, standing on the rooftops and screaming about this, are the same ones who yell and scream about how racism is wrong. Everyone, no matter their skin color or gender or anything else they identify as, a furry or whatever it is they're identifying as, these are all people and we need to respect them. And it's incredibly important that we respect everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they look like, no matter what is spewed out of their mouth, except the Jews. They have a whole category all their own. The same thing happens in the school systems. So if you are in the public school system, or at least when my kids were younger and they were in the public school system, which didn't last for very long, they celebrated Halloween. And, they had not only just celebrated Halloween, but they had whole school plays where people were rising out of graves and doing all kinds of Halloween things. But you couldn't say Merry Christmas. You were only allowed to say Happy Holidays. There was nothing that could be said about Jesus or Christmas or Christ or anything else. So it's that same way that the enemy is dividing our country and dividing our world. He is also dividing the church. I mean the big C church, the church that follows and honors Jesus Christ. There also is this faction of individuals who scream about how there must be a separation of church and state. But you also have now Moran Zamboni in New York, who is celebrating Ramadan, who is praying in the government buildings, and whose individuals in his meetings are giving hand signals that indicate they are associated with or support ISIS. While the Jewish temples and the Christian churches are attacked, no one is touching a mosque, and prayers are being broadcast throughout cities 5 times a day. So as you're listening to influencers who are creating this divide within the Christian community, you have to ask yourself, why? What's in it for them? They claim to be a Christian. What's in it for them? And honestly, I believe that what is in it for them is money. It's clickbait. It's a way to get you to listen to their videos, and it's a way for them to earn money. This shows me that ultimately they don't care about what's happening to the country or to the people around them or to the church or to other Christians. All that matters to them is money and power. It's the only reasonable explanation I can come up with as to why they would propose ideas that are so outlandish as to be laughable. So what these people have been saying for the last several years is that you've been lied to. Turning Point is lying to you. The government is lying to you. Mainstream media is lying to you. Anyone who is reasonable is lying to you. And you would think that the normal response to being lied to is that once you've been shown you've been lied to, is to have a greater critical thinking, start to ask questions. Well, okay, you're telling me that I've been lied to, and now you're telling me this new piece of information. So show it to me, prove it to me. Give me the information. But what has happened is this psychological doorway that opened up when we all started learning about how many lies we've been told about Joe Biden or COVID or any, the Hunter Biden laptop, any of the other things that have happened that have become well known as lies. Now, suddenly, instead of thinking more critically and asking questions, we're starting to believe more lies just on the other end of the spectrum. I'm a freelance writer, and I have been for a long time, 15 years, I think now. And for 8 of those years, I worked for Dr. Mercola. And Dr. Mercola is a health and wellness guy. And he was, I was on his team calls for 8 years. The man is incredibly bright. And for those of you who don't know, I'm also a nurse practitioner. So, I mean, I hear this information from him. I have a background in medicine. I understand what he's saying and the conclusions he drew and the things that he understood from research was amazing. And I loved listening to him. He was just really a brilliant man. But then about 2 years ago, he announced that he was going to begin listening to and following this ancient astral spirit. I can't remember the astral spirit's name. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, he was going to start following this astral spirit, and this astral spirit was going to tell him how to run his business and what he should do. And in listening to this spirit, he fired 5 of his top people over email overnight, and one of those people was his sister without ever talking to her. Well, within a week or 2 of hearing this information, I quit. I turned in my resignation and told them I wouldn't work with them anymore. Now, for me, this was a big deal because I had never worked anywhere for 8 years. That, as a freelancer, you kind of come and go with different companies, and I'd never worked that long for anyone else. So it was momentous for me. And I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed being paid to do research to learn more about what interested me. So it was a win-win situation. But I wouldn't work for someone whose spiritual belief system was so diametrically opposed to mine. Now, I will work for companies who aren't, broadcasting that they do one thing or another, or that they're neutral. They keep their belief system out of business. But they're moral and ethical. That I'll do. But this man was suddenly going to be bringing in a whole spiritual realm into his work that was extraordinarily outside of my wheelhouse. And so I quit, and I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have another client lined up. I just trusted that God would honor my decision, and he did. Within weeks after losing that income, I had another job with another company, and it paid more. So that was nice. I'm telling you this story not to say what I'm good at or not good at, but to illustrate that no matter where we stand, no matter what we're doing, whether it's at work or our personal lives or what we're listening to on the internet, we have to stand for God, because ultimately his will, our obedience to his will and to his word, is the only thing that matters. When you read the Bible, you will see, and you do see, that God has told us that there will be people who come along to divide us, to divide our country, to divide our church, to divide families, and that we should expect this. And that's influencers, movies, Hollywood, political parties. And there is one political party who has become very adept at telling lies, and dividing individuals. I'm not saying I am one or the other. I am not Democrat. I am not Republican, excuse me. I'm a conservative Christian. I believe in the Bible. I believe what the Bible says. And so, for me, that's where I stand and that's how I vote. But the Democratic Party has done an excellent job of learning how to divide the country and even divide their own party, and definitely working at dividing the Republican Party. So it's been an interesting situation to watch. So today I'm asking that we all pray for discernment for ourselves and for our friends and family members, and critical thinking. That critical thinking makes a big comeback, that we're no longer distracted by the big shiny object and the financial wizardry or any other promise of something quick and easy. God gave us a mind so that we could use it, so we could think and make choices. And so I'm asking that we all pray about stepping up and stepping into the work that God has for each of us, because we all have a purpose in this life, and there is a way for us to walk in that purpose. So consider asking God to open your eyes and show you the truth so that you can walk in that truth and gain the benefits and the joy of being with God. I believe that we all need to declare today that we are Americans with eyes wide open and hearts ready. We are the land of the free and the home of the brave, one nation under God.